you excited? Our last formal class of ACI 18. Thanks for hanging in there on this wild ride as our minds get stretched. So thank you for hanging in there, believing in this stuff, and figuring out how to use it in your life, because it's not just an intellectual exercise. All of this is here for us to take hold of, really, and to use it in our lives. The last time I taught this course, part of the final was to put together your own life tool from all of these teachings. And if you, like, whatever one touches your heart, or one that you would choose, I mean, it's hard, right, to choose just one that you would want to teach to somebody else. Think about how you could develop that and how you could teach it so that it's easily understood and would help the other person, would serve them. So I'm not going to ask you to do that, but I'm just sharing it with you. Maybe it's something you would like to do, because we all have to be teachers. We can't let this knowledge, this wisdom, die with us. So think about how you want to pass it on. Yeah. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Oh, well, maybe not. Felt like it. Felt like it. So get a good seat, hold on. We're going to jump right back into what the Buddha really meant. And we're going to approach it with our Madhyamika Prasangika, part of the just general Madhyamika, both the independent school and the Prasangika school, right? We're going to Svatantrika and the Prasangika. We're going to jump in and see what they think is figurative and what is literal. Remember that figurative is something that, for this school, that doesn't talk about emptiness directly. Literal is that which addresses emptiness literally, right? That addresses it directly. So this is something to keep in mind, and it differs for each of the schools. So are you ready to get on the tiger? Let's go. All right. Let me set up everything. Interview. Hang on here. Okie dokie. So you know where we're at. Again, there's a copy of what the beginning of the text looks like. Trang Ne Lek She Ning Po. The Essence of Eloquence, written by Lama Tsongkhapa. And in this, we are addressing, move this down here. Yeah. In this, we're addressing the ultimate philosophical questions in Buddhism. And perhaps it's Lama Tsongkhapa's most important work. What did the Buddha mainly mean about emptiness? And this text, it covers all the different versions of emptiness taught by the Buddha. I don't know if you've noticed, but in all of the review courses that we've done, which means in all of the foundation courses, we keep coming back to two principles. One is karma, and the other is emptiness. One is seeds, and one is emptiness, right? So we keep coming back to these two in different ways of looking at them, in ways of using them in our lives, but it really all gets down to emptiness. Emptiness is not really something that appears in other traditions, and it's unique and the most precious teaching of Buddhism. Right? How does it relate to our morality? How does it relate to how we interact with the world and create the world? That has to do with the seeds. So you see how it all comes down to emptiness, emptiness, emptiness. And if we understand it clearly and start to put it into our practice, we will see a reduction in our daily suffering. If it is explained clearly, so we can do it to achieve the ultimate goals of a spiritual practice, then it will be the most precious thing you can ever learn, and the most precious thing that you can pass on to somebody else. So that's where kind of this thought about the life tool comes in. How could you pass it on to someone else? Gyelse has given us numerous examples of life tools. We've got the pen, we've got the two husbands in the kitchen, just to name two. So think about it. So the question is, does literal and figurative apply to all the teachings that Lord Buddha gave during the time of his career? As we spoke yesterday and told you where the three turnings of the wheel took place and who they were meant for. So partly we're talking about those historical times. The first turning of the wheel was the beginning of his career. The second was the middle of his career. The third was the end. But we can't say that absolutely that they all refer, that they're all literal or they're all figurative, every one of them, because other topics were taught during those times. We can say mostly the three turnings are about emptiness, but not every teaching given during those times, needs to go through this examination of what's its true meaning. So, as we said yesterday, the first turning of the wheel is every existing thing exists by definition. The second, no existing thing exists by definition. And the third, some things exist by definition and some things don't. And we must make this fine distinction between them. So here's an example of something that doesn't need to be examined closely. There's an example in the first teaching, in the first turning of the wheel, where Lord Buddha said, wear your lower robes in a neat circle. It's a Vinaya teaching. And even though it was taught during the first turning of the wheel, it isn't really considered part of the three turnings. It's not something that needs to be examined. We don't need to examine everything that our teachers told us. The most important things are the spiritual things. So, are all three turnings literal? There was an ancient, in the 12th century Tibet, there were a group of students who followed a teaching called the Zhongnangpo. And they said that all three turnings of the wheel should be taken literally. They said Lord Buddha was speaking literally when he said that things do have some kind of self-nature, and that he was talking about Buddha nature. We've talked about the lower schools, so some of the lower schools and the mind-only school, they take Buddha nature to be a little Buddha inside, right? That's covered over, that's surrounded by obscurations, it's surrounded by like the inability to see it. And all we need to do is reveal it. Sounds good, right? But it's dangerous because it's easy to take this to mean that there is some self-existent Buddha nature, self-nature. So in the essence of eloquence, in Chang'e, Lama Tsongkhapa disproves this. He says Buddha nature is primarily the emptiness of your mind stream. And that same emptiness continues from life to life. It's the only thing that holds our mind stream together. And as long as the mind stream is in existence, the emptiness of it is in existence. The emptiness remains unchanged until and when you are enlightened. Then you have the emptiness of an enlightened mind stream. Because that is what has now arisen. So be careful. Yes, we have to uncover our Buddha nature. What does that mean? It means understanding that everything is coming from you. It's the same understanding that an enlightened being has. They know that everything is coming from them. And they don't know it just intellectually. You know, once you've seen once you've seen emptiness directly, then there's no question about it anymore. That's why it's such a life-changing experience. You know that you have Buddha nature. You have seen your Buddha nature. You have seen the emptiness of your own mind. So ultimate reality to the lower schools is not what Madhyamika Prasangika considers emptiness. Rather, they say that ultimate reality is the physical building blocks of nature. So if we're staying with Prasangika, the consequence school, why is it called that? Because if you say something like that isn't quite right, the mind of the other person will there will be a consequence, and you will understand the ultimate reality. So in Prasangika, it's important to distinguish between ultimate reality and something that exists ultimately. So ultimate in the middle way is the ultimate reality is the fact that nothing has any nature of its own. Everything, all existing things, they have no self-nature. So ultimate reality is called, say, Dundam, Dempa. Dundam, Dempa. And then exists ultimately, something that exists ultimately is, say, Dundam, Dempar, Yupa. Dundam, Dempar, Yupa. To exist ultimately means to have a self-nature. It exists from its own side. It's coming this way. It's not coming this way. It's not a projection. On the other hand, ultimate reality is emptiness, which, of course, applies to everything, including emptiness. To exist ultimately applies to nothing, including emptiness. Say that again. To exist ultimately means to have a self-nature. Take your finger, look around your room. Can you find anything that exists ultimately? Did you find anything? I didn't see anybody looking. Don't just believe me. Check it out for yourself. So to exist ultimately applies to nothing. Ultimate reality is emptiness and applies to everything. So there are these two realities. There's deceptive reality and ultimate reality. See, kunzo, dempa. Kunzo, dempa. Kunzo means deceptive. We could say that powdered milk creamer is kunzo. It's not really milk creamer, right? It's all sorts of chemicals put together. It's deceptive. It's counterfeit. It's false. It's illusory. It's fake. It's that which tricks you. Dempa, truth, is reality. Not philosophical realities, but things, right? So kunzo dempa is the thing that deceives an ignorant mind. The thing that deceives the mind that is deceived. So if our mind is deceived, of course, everything that appears to us is deceptive. Deceptive reality is defined in terms of a deceived state of mind. It only exists relative to that state of mind, that deceived one. Right? If everything is coming from our seeds in our mind, and our mind is deceived, everything I'm looking at here on my table, all of you, you appear deceptive to me. I mean, I can think about that intellectually. I mean, right now, you don't appear to be fake to me, nor does this glass of water. Because my mind is already deceived. It's deceived into thinking that it exists self-existently out here, independent of the way I'm being forced to see it, right? So we call these deceptive and ultimate reality. We call them the two truths, which is also deceptive, because what we're talking about is conventional and relative truth. This reality, deceptive reality, is called deceptive because it seems to be one way, self-existent, but it's really something else, a projection forced on us by how we've treated others and the seeds that that has planted in our minds. So that's according to the Madhyamika Prasangika. According to the mind only, deceptive and ultimate reality, they say there is a lack of a different substance between the object and that which perceives the object. They are the same substance. Deceptive reality, kunzo, is that which does not exist by definition. Remember yesterday, kuntaks? That's kuntak. Ultimate reality. It'd probably be really good to do a mind map of this. right? To look at all the differences. Ultimate reality, Dundang, in the mind-only school, exists by definition. Shenwangs and Yongdrups. So Sukdang, Sukzin, Suk is the object, Tang just means and. Sukzin is the one who holds the object. Okay. Sema, we all know Sema by now, right? Valid perception. Zation. Zay is substance, and Shen we learned, other, right? Different. So zation is like different substance. Anybody know Tongpa? You ever heard of Tongpa Ni? Yes, what is it, David?
Emptiness.
Yeah. So Tongpa is emptiness. So this is saying there is a lack of a different substance between the object and that which perceives the object. What does it mean? It means it's coming from the same thing. It's not that the physical object is made of the same stuff as the mind. What it's saying is that your experience and your sense faculty come from the same seed. So we have one seed which produces the glass, and the same seed produces my ability to sense the glass. It comes from one seed. That's what the mind only says. So how does the mind only school then make this difference? How do they decide what is ultimate reality and what is deceptive reality? They say that anything which exists by definition, meaning dependent things in totality, right, is an example of ultimate reality. Anything that doesn't exist by definition, meaning constructs, is an example of deceptive reality. And that the valid perception, the sema, which is the subject which perceives the physical object, the fact that I labeled, I see this as a glass, and the physical object which it perceives are the same thing, coming from that one seed, one karmic seed. They arise together. They do not mean that the physical object is made of the same stuff as the mind. When I perceive a glass, the glass and my perception arise at the same moment from the same seed. Deceptive reality, again, is that which does not exist by definition. What is that? Those are their kuntas. Okay? Constructs, mental images, label. Ultimate reality is that which exists by definition. And that's those shenwangs and yongjubs. Shenwangs, things that are powered by other, they're changing things, they're dependent things. And yongjub is this totality, right? The simple lack of a non-existent self-nature. And that is mind-only school's emptiness. So if it's not made from the same stuff, why do we call it mind-only? It's deceptive, that name. It doesn't mean it's all mind. And it has three meanings. And of course, Lama Tsongkhapa explains all this in the Illumination of True Thought. He says, physical causes. So he's explaining the mind only, why it's not mind only. Physical causes are not the main causes of things. Rather, it's our mind. It's our karma. Mind only does say that physical causes do contribute, but they're not the main cause. There's some part of us that's saying that, there is a glass here. And my karma is forcing me to see that there is a glass there. That's what mind only is saying. Whereas Madhyamika Prasangika would say, your mind is even creating the glass. There isn't something self-existent out there. Second reason is the world is not created by a creator. It's not like you're creating a pot out of physical stuff. Rather, it's coming from your own mind. Thirdly, they say everything comes from the same seed, from the grasper and the grasped. Right? Where does this $100 bill come from? It comes from the same seed as me perceiving that there's a $100 bill there. It comes from the same seed. You still with me? David's nodding yes. Other people are going, I'm not sure. It is something that you have to think about. What does Mind Only School say? What does Madhyamika School say? And figure out where you are in that particular moment. And you'll understand why Lord Buddha taught it this way. Why he taught different philosophical schools. Are you seeing the glass being a projection of your mind? Or maybe you're like Mind Only, which is 50-50. There is a glass out there. And because I'm human, I can see it as a glass and having water in it. I think that's where I'm at. I'd like to be Madhyamika Prasangika, but yeah. So when the glass breaks, the question is, then do you get upset? Or is it like, oh, I must not have given enough glasses away to people, glasses of stuff they like to drink, right? So it's helpful to have these different touch points to understand where our mind's at and what we're thinking. How are we thinking about that husband in the kitchen? There is a husband in the kitchen, they're upset, and they're coming from me. And we have this feeling that there is this solid person out there who is upset at us. Not that we created the upsetness. So Lama Tsongkhapa, he quotes the Sutra of the 10th level. Natasha, would you just read this short little quote for us?
Sure. These three realms of existence are mind only.
Thank you. So it seems that it's saying the three realms, come from the mind only. And again, that doesn't mean there is nothing but the mind. Rather, that the mind is the main thing that is producing your world. So mind only is an abbreviation of this phrase. The point is that the way that the mind creates the world is causing us to collect good seeds and bad seeds. The point is not that we just make up the world with our mind. So exists truly in the independent group of the Middle Way School. They said, Lo nume la nangwe, wangi shakpe, mayinpar yul rangi tumong, mayimpe duluk ki nu ne jupa. So the independent school, this is what they think when they say truly existent. So what is all that foreign language? What do those words mean? It means an object exists truly, ultimate, when it exists from its own side, through its own unique identity. Without being simply established as existing by virtue of its appearing to an unaffected state of mind. That would be something that truly exists. This is the ultimate thing defined, the gotcha. Something that it can exist from its own side, through its own unique identity, appearing to an unaffected state of mind. If the pen if the pen appears to an unaffected, undistorted, undeceived state of mind, it can be said to exist. So this means that a pen, for this pen to exist, right? As a pen, two things have to be present. It has to be appearing from its own side as a pen, and I have to be perceiving it as a pen with a clear state of mind. So again, here too, there has to be a basis. As in the story of the magic show, the stick must be there for you to see a horse. But you also have to have, in that story, the magician throws some powder and it affects everybody's state of mind. There still has to be a basis there. So let's take the story in our reading. It's about these three beings who walk into a bar, and I kind of imagine it like going into a basement bar in Lower Manhattan, right? It's dark, it's filled with smoke, there's music playing, there's not a lot of light. And these three beings go in there. One's a human, one's an angel, and one is a hungry ghost. They sit down at the bar, or maybe at a table, and the bartender comes and he puts down a glass of something that is wet and flowing. Right? Wet and flowing. We could say liquid. And you can read the story. I'm not going to go into it deeply. Each of the beings, well, what do you think? Does the angels see it like the human would, or like the hungry ghost would? The human would see it, it looks pretty similar to this glass, right? The human would see it as a glass of water. Now, if you were an enlightened being, this would be sweet, deathless nectar, right? If you were someone who had been stingy and not shared things and were a hungry ghost, you couldn't get any sustenance from this, and it would taste horrible, maybe like pus or something, right? Ugh. So which one is right? Which one is right? Is it the human? I say it's the human because I'm a human and it's water, right? And the angel's like, doesn't taste like water to me. Tastes like sweet, deathless nectar. And the hungry ghost says, oh, I don't want that. It tastes disgusting. I can't get it down. Are they each having a valid perception forced on them by their seeds? Yeah. And it's an unaffected state of mind. Yes, it's a deceptive state of mind. We can say that. But it's not affected by drugs or insanity. It's just infected by each one's seeds. So what is it? Is it nectar? Is it water? Is it pus? Yes. Is this a pen or is it a chew toy? Yes. It all depends on who's seeing it. So the next time you get in an argument with someone, who's right? each being is perceiving it differently, forced on them by their seeds. And it functions. That's the way they're perceiving it. Is there a right? There's only your right and their right. That's why we fight. And each of you is being forced to see it the way you are seeing it by your seeds. That's why most of the time it is useless to argue with someone. You want to see a change? Change your seeds. You can't change anybody else's seeds. Trying to prove that your perspective is the right perspective, they're perceiving things differently. They're perceiving it as the pus, as not something good. You're seeing it as the nectar, as something inconceivable, right? So it's important to understand these stories and to really think about them and how you can use them in your life. They are allegories, they are metaphors for us to take away and use them in our life, to understand these ideas. And sometimes stories are so much easier for us to understand and than heavy philosophical ideas. So the philosophical ideas are taken and put into a story, whether it be the wheel of sharp weapons or the three guys in the bar, for us to be able to digest something in a little more accessible form, I would say. So this water story is like a life tool. So what about existing things? Mind only says that there are things that can exist from their own side through some unique identity of their own. The middle way school, on the other hand, says, the middle way independent school, says the perception of things depends on their appearing from their own side to a state of mind which, from its side, its own side, is unerring. It's not tainted by anger, jealousy, drugs, alcohol. Right? Now, the middle way consequent school, the Madhyamika Prasangika school, says, if you look closely, then you keep going down and down and down, and you will never find anything that exists self-existently. If you allow it to be what you're projecting on it, it functions. But if you go looking down through the layers, it's like the onion. You go through the onion skin and you keep taking a layer off and another layer off and another layer off. And you keep going down, trying to find something which is not merely labeled with your mind, you will never, ever find anything. Don't take my word for it. Don't take Lord Buddha's word for it. Don't take Geshe Michael's word for it. Don't take Arya Nagarjuna's word for it. Burn it. Cut it. And pound it and check it all out. This is how enlightenment works. Because objects are empty, your projection is what changes. Your projection, the world around you, how you perceive of yourself, is all based on seeds. If that's true, then you can change your projection. Cool? Cool. So with that thought in mind, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's have a stretch, get something to drink. And when you come back, we're going to talk about the 6 flavors of emptiness. All righty. See you then. Okay, welcome back. So, the 6 flavors of emptiness. We have vanilla emptiness and chocolate emptiness and chocolate vanilla twist emptiness. These 6 flavors, 6 ideas of emptiness were taught by Lord Buddha. 5 of them are incomplete. They are each gradually taking us up each rung of that ladder that I spoke about yesterday. Where does that ladder go to? To your Buddha paradise, to heaven. And we need to understand the elementary ones, right? The basic ones first, to be able to go up to the next level. Just like when we were learning to read, we learned the alphabet, then we learned simple words and how to sound them out, and how to recognize them. So we start with a foundation, with the most basic ones. And this distinguishes all the ancient schools of Buddhism, all the teachings of Lord Buddha. And this is where Lama Tsongkhapa put his heart. How emptiness works and how to get it to work for you. So we're going to go through these 6 kinds of emptiness. We could also say the 6 kinds of gotchas. Remember what a gotcha is? It was that pink psychedelic 2-headed elephant rampaging through our room. How many are here? 0. So emptiness means a lack of something that is not present, but we think it's present. And sadly, all of our suffering is caused by this. What causes death itself is a belief in something that was never there, never will be there, and never was. And so we have to identify what it is. So this is the study of trying to find the thing that's not there, never was and never will. And we're studying it because it causes all of our pain. And if I could figure that out, then I don't have to die. We're still trying to figure it out. We react to violence with violence. We react to criticism with criticism. And it just keeps our ignorance going and keeps us stuck in this way of perceiving a world that is painful and suffering. So the first level is the Vaibhashika school, the Abhidharma school. Which is the lack of a self which is unchanging, which is whole, which is independent. So again, self here is referring to no self nature. They're talking about selflessness. So their attitude, their understanding is this too will pass. Which, how often have you had a situation we feel like it's self-existent and it's like, okay, this too will pass, it will go. It's come, it's gone, it'll go away, And even though it's still hurting us inside, we're okay because we know it's not going to last forever. It's a good thing to be able to think that way, right? Because then we don't have to hold on to it. So that is the first level. The second level, second flavor, is the lack of a self-standing, substantial person. Okay, if there's not a self-standing, self-existent person who exists here, it means I can't control this in the present moment. It's what Geshe Michael used to call dry cement. The concrete or the cement's been poured, it's hardened, you can't do anything about it. So this second flavor is there's an owner or a controller of your destiny. That's what we think. And there is a lack of this. That's what the emptiness is. So that's one side of the coin. The other side is that there is, I am here, I can control what's going to happen in the present, in the future. There is a you, there is a me, and an owner in your head moving everything, controlling everything, even controlling raising my arm, right? And this illusion is incredibly strong, right? It looks like I have control. I think raise my arm, and it looks like I have control to raise my arm. Why don't I? Because there will become a time when you think, I want to raise my hand or my arm, and you won't be able to do it. Do you know if you'll have the shirt you're wearing today, tomorrow? How can we claim to control these things? Do we have power over our face, our bodies? No, we don't. It is an illusion. Is that emptiness? Will it lead you directly to enlightenment? No. Will it help you to think like that? Yeah. If you realize that you don't own anything, that you don't control the things around you, the people around you, even your own body, then you give, it allows you to create better seeds, more virtuous seeds to get enlightened. When you're not trying to manipulate things all the time, to have it your way. So you get this power to plant enough seeds to become enlightened. and to understand those things in your world that you do control, in the sense that you can plant seeds in the future. In the present, forget it. So there is no owner in a substantial way like that. No owner, not substantial in that way. So the tagline here is, I cannot control this in the present moment. So why keep fighting about it? So you can see how this is helpful, right? Okay, this is what's arising in the moment. This too will pass, and I can't control. So we're climbing up the ladder. The third one is the lack of a self, which is I'm sorry, I'm looking at number one here. What we see and we who see it are empty of any separate substance, in the sense of coming from separate seeds. So the one we just talked about, right? The mind-only school. So who taught mind-only? Yeah, Lord Buddha did. And what did he say about the middle way? I was just kidding you guys. Was he telling the truth? He was not speaking what it was. Do you remember Zacian's separate karmic seeds? Mind only says the subject and the object in any event come from one karmic seed. The Kuntak and the Shenhua come from one karmic seed. And that is what we're denying here. That's the flavor of emptiness here. Emptiness is that there isn't a subject and an object which come from a different seed. They always come from the same karmic seed. One specific seed. So how can we apply that in our lives? The bad thing to the bad things that happen to us. We complain when bad things happen to us. We go, why me? Understand, I have put this and myself here. I planted a seed that forced me to have this experience and to perceive it the way I'm experiencing it. Do we ever complain about the good things that happen to us? Oh, why did I just get $300? No. But it's healthy to think about. Oh, somebody gave me that $300 because I helped somebody else out financially. And so what's the best thing to do? Give it away again. Right? Reinvest it. Flavor number 4. Things are empty of being called what they are automatically. This is another mind-only version of emptiness. The fact that something is what it is not automatic. The label pen is not automatic. You know, in Chinese, it's B, right? Does it automatically have the name pen? Didn't necessarily have to be that way. Didn't have to be called pen in English. It would still function the same way. A rose by any other name would still smell as sweet. They are conventions, creations that we have created by our own seeds. Our seeds that are forcing us to call it, whatever you happen to call it. I don't know what it's called in Ukrainian or Russian, stilo, whatever you happen to call it. So how is this applicable in our lives? We mainly use it in judging others, in deciding what is right, what is good, what's the best, my favorite song, my favorite ice cream. So you can apply the word best rock and roll musician in the world, of course, automatically to Jimi Hendrix, right? No. There are those who would not agree to me. Will you get enlightened if you keep thinking it that way? That things are not labeled automatically. Will it get you all the way to enlightenment without understanding how things are labeled? No. Will it help? Yeah. Is it emptiness? No. Is it nirvana? No. Does it make you a lot less judgmental in your life? Yeah, it does. And if you realize the words best ice cream is not automatically the best ice cream, that words do not apply to their object automatically, especially when judging other people and the conflicts and the differences you have with them. Nobody sees the world exactly the way you do. Why are you fighting? Words and their ideas don't apply to objects automatically. Best ice cream must be applied to, what's my favorite these days? The mocha flavor by Coconut Bliss, right? That's the best these days. But there's people who are not going to think it's the best. And that's just a simple example. We don't fight over the best flavors of ice cream. But we do fight over other things that are, when we really look at them, are probably just as silly. Nobody sees the world in the same way. What does that mean? What does it imply? It means nothing is self-existent. And everyone is just like you. They have their own desires, own perceptions of things. They see the world the way they see it forced on them by their karma. So stop fighting. They just have different seeds. Two more flavors to go. The strawberry flavor. Number 5, Things are empty of existing from their own side in some kind of unique way of their own. Rather, they can only exist if an unimpaired state of mind is also seeing them. What doesn't exist is a pen that it could exist solely from its own side without my active participation. This is that 50-50. There is something out there, and I am bringing my perception to it. There is something that's going pen, 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 and I'm perceiving it as pen, pen, pen. Flavors of ice cream. I have a normal state of mind. This pen is presenting itself to me as a pen, and I am seeing it that way. The highest school would say, there is no pen out there from its own side. There is an object out there. But here, this school is saying, yeah, there's an object out there that has some pennish to it. It's like maybe saying pen, pen, pen. And I'm going, oh, that's a pen. There is an object out there looking pennish. And I'm taking it that way and seeing it as a pen. So no object has any identity from its own side, independent from the way I think of it. It does have some identity, but it doesn't mean anything at all until I identify. Okay, yeah, got it. So what? This is the study of Lojong, of transforming problems into incredible projects or opportunities. This is the half, we're asking, is it half empty or half full? Who does it depend on? What has to be there? If a glass of water were filled up to here, is it half full or half empty? Is this glass mostly empty or mostly full? Of what? Right? Most of the time, we're thinking it's half empty. Can we switch our thinking to be, oh, it's half full? This state of mind that believes that there's not enough and we need more and more and more causes us to create negative deeds. If we have enough, no matter how much it is, then who's suffering? So we're getting here very close to the sixth one. We can look at every personal disaster as, oh, that was painful, but you know what? Now I can do something else with my life. We can look at it as freeing us up of leaving some baggage behind that we have been carrying in our karmic pockets for eons. Right? In my own situation, I didn't have the strength to get out of a relationship that wasn't nourishing me. And it felt horrible when it fell apart. And horrible things were said. And it was painful. And afterwards, it was like, wow, I really needed that. So I could move forward in my life. Thank goodness somebody did it for me. Of course, I planted them. This is the big thing in Lojong. Nothing is a problem from its own side. If we refuse to conceptualize it that way. I have a friend who, before she came to the Dharma, before I met her, because I met her in the Dharma, she lost a daughter to AIDS. And it was, of course, incredibly painful. I think that's a parent's worst nightmare, is to lose a child. And it was because of that that she ended up at a teaching with Geshe Michael. This was in California, where I met her. It was because of that. And she met with him and told him the story of her loss. And he invited her to think of her daughter as an angel, as someone who had come into her life to bring her joys, to bring her things to work on, and that she had left and was still watching over her, and her having left pushed her to look for something, to understand what was going on in her life. And she has always held that view. This is called Simsam. We hold the view that what is happening to us is not something punishing us, but something that helps us to go to the next level that we need to in our human evolution. And we can think of all of the bad things that have ever happened to us, all the worst painful things that way. We can rewrite our story. As you know, we can look back on our lives and look at all those painful situations and the people that we think who hurt us. And we can rewrite that story. What's their impact on us? And it's very, very powerful. So in this flame, nothing exists solely from its own side. We hold 50% of its existence in our mind. If you have had deep traumas in your life, this could be a very, very difficult way to approach those traumas. Those traumas need to be worked with until you can get to the place where you can see that 50% of it is existing in your mind. I have friends who have had deep traumas as children, and to say that I created this by my own seeds. And it kind of, for them, negates the traumas that they experienced as children. Saying, I am the cause. I did this. It wasn't that my mother did it or my father did it or an uncle abused me, whatever. So again, we have to use skillful means, just like Lord Buddha. Is this person ready to go there? If not, work at the level they are at. Don't be, what's the word? Someone who imposes your ideas and thoughts on somebody else, causing you to judge that person as bad, or for them to judge themselves as, I was bad, I created this situation. It will just, most likely just solidify the trauma and make it worse. So be careful. Do judge others. But judge them so that you're judging to see where they're at. Not if they're good or bad or whatever. Not in that way. And we talked about it when we talked about debate. You have to start where someone is at before you can help them, serve them, to see the world in a different way, to bring them out of suffering. So, what is flavor number 6? The last one was blueberry. This one is strawberry, made with fresh strawberries and cream. Things are empty of existing from their own side. They are coming from my side. And we must, therefore, be as gardeners. This is the ultimate worldview. This is the Madhyamika Prasangika worldview. This is the worldview of Lord Buddha, of Arya Nagarjuna, of Lama Tsongkhapa, of Geshe Thupten Rinchen, of Geshe Michael Roach, of the Diamond Way. Things are Tokpe Taksan. Say Tokpe Taksan. Tokpe Taksan. They are simply a product of your projections forced on you by your past karma. It's not a psychological projection. You are seeing things the way you do because your past seeds are forcing you to see them that way. We need at least 3,000 hours of studying emptiness. Why do you think I say the same thing over and over and over again? I need it, at least. I don't know about you guys, but I did. If you're a dog, you're forced to see this as a chew toy. I do know some humans who also chew on their pens. Maybe they were a dog in their past life. If you are a human, you are forced to see it as something to write with, right? That's what it means to be a dog or a human. If you start to salivate and wag your tail when you see this, you are a dog. The way you perceive it makes you who you are. Not that you perceive it that way because of who you are. Say it again. The way you perceive it makes you who you are. Not that you perceive it that way because of who you are. It's not because I am a human that makes me perceive this as water. Right? Because I perceive it as water makes me a human. We don't see this as something to chew on because we're not a dog. If we were, and I held it out to my little dog friend Chloe, she would grab onto it and chew it. So how your past actions force you to see things is super important. The seeds that you've planted. This is just a bunch of cylinders. And it's my mind that's making me see it as a human. This is a bunch of cylinders. It is my mind that makes me see it as a pen or a chew tool. Who's right? The dog or the human? Right? Both. Neither. So it's right that the dog chews on it. How can you get mad at the dog for chewing on a pen? They don't see it as a pen. And it is right that the human writes with it. And if a dog gets mad when you take the pen away because it's a pen, he's like, no, you just took my chew toy away. So we finally have a worldview which teaches us how not to get old and how not to die. So don't be lazy. Turn this thing of cylinders into an angel's body in this life. Depending on our seeds, we will perceive this thing differently. And you now have the choice of what you want your world to look like in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, whatever, right? Are you tired of seeing what you see? Then don't be lazy. Get it together. Do your book. Do your 6 times book. Keep your vows. Serve others. Do it sweetly with whatever understanding of emptiness you have. And then this blank screen that we project everything onto will change. You will begin to see things differently because they don't have any nature of their own. Do something. Wake up. Keep your vows and sit back, and you will become Tara or Manjushri. You have, if you have done all 18 courses, you have all the info you need in Worldview 6 to turn this body into a body of light, to become an enlightened being. We just have to do it. And the last night of the Hatha Yoga Pratipaka classes, one young woman said, I think I'm a little scared of all that power, that I could do that. What's our choice, though? To be able to use that to change the world, or to stay in suffering and all of those around us to stay in suffering? We each need to make that choice and decide for ourselves. Pretty heavy, huh? So what is Gyelse Tsongkhapa's position? So at the end of Essence of Eloquence, or the Art of Interpretation, or Changne Lekshe Nimpo, Gyelse Tsongkhapa openly declares that he follows the Madhyamika Prasangika point of view. He says, I follow the beautiful system of Nagarjuna, who could not consider Nagarjuna's system to be the very best. So if everything is a projection, can we make anything we want it to be? Not right now. Otherwise, we wouldn't be suffering at all. It is ours. We can't robo-closet. We can't force it, because it's all forced on us by our karma. So, if everything is a projection, do we need to be ethical? Of course. They become all the more important, because they are what are planting our seeds, good or bad. So someone who really understands emptiness immediately understands that it's absolutely necessary, essential, to lead a kind life. If things are empty, you can turn your world into a paradise. How? Create virtue. How do you do that? Be kind. Go through each of the 6 flavors of emptiness. Keep your vows. Purify your negative deeds. In the Heart Sutra, it says that you can stop the process of aging and death. Is it figurative or literal? If it's true that everything is coming from my own seeds, we are talking about emptiness here. It is literal. Come on, I haven't seen anyone do it yet. That's also being controlled by your karma. That's also a projection of your seeds. To see those who have stopped their aging and death, you would have to be extremely close to experiencing the same result yourself. In Christianity, there were those who saw Jesus rise up from the dead. They were close enough to having that experience themselves of understanding where things come from, to be able to see that happen. we, in our lives, we have the ability to experience and have somebody in our lives who has seen emptiness directly. And what does that say about us? It's saying that that target is really close, and we just have to stop being lazy. So keep your vows, be kind, meditate, serve, do your retreats, and you will get there. And that is the end of ACI 18 formally. Yay! You still have some homeworks to do though, and finals, and we will meet once again next Sunday. Your meditation assignment is an analytical meditation on whether or not you really believe in these lines from the Heart Sutra, that there is no aging and death, and there is no stopping this aging and death. That's what we have to think about. And whether or not you are doing everything you can do to make them come true in your own life. And if you're not, you have to make the decision if you're going to or not. Don't sit on the fence. Gets uncomfortable after a while anyway. So that's the end of our class. Thank you for hanging in there. And let's take a moment to dedicate all of the hard work, intellectual, physical, emotional, that we have been doing for all these years, and let us dedicate it to becoming that enlightened being, to becoming one who can bring every being out of suffering. Send that wish, that desire, that commitment on a beam of light from your heart out to those closest to you. Imagine how happy it makes them. How much suffering it removes. And then from there, it goes out to your friends and associates, your neighborhood. And then it goes further out to your town or city, everyone who lives there. Not just humans, but all the beings. Touching them, removing their suffering. And then beyond your city to your country. And as the circle gets bigger to the countries around you, to the east and the north and the west and the south and above and below. Out into the universe, to other worlds and beings in other worlds. And know that you have removed the suffering of every being. That this is your destiny. We start small with those closest to us until we become a being who can stand on one planet and send out emanations of ourselves to serve every being in every universe. And then the light comes back into your heart, withdrawing from the edge of the world. Into the diamond and the rose at your heart. Your understanding of seeds and emptiness. This is your destiny. You will become an enlightened angel. Three long exhalations. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and stretch. And look around you. Look at this screen with all of these beings who are traveling together with you on this path. Thank you. And see you all next Sunday. Love you guys. Have a good week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.